April 2nd, President Trump determined that our exploding trade deficits have brought us to the brink of an economic and national security catastrophe. He further pronounced that the traffic of fentanyl and other opioids into our country has created a public health crisis, taking hundreds of thousands of American lives. President Trump has declared that these emergencies are country-killing and not sustainable, that they threaten the bedrock of our national and economic security, and that fixing them will make America a strong, financially viable, and respected country again.
Okay, so picture this. You're sitting in the White House, you've got your coffee, you're scrolling through the news, and then boom, one of your own lawyers goes on live TV and basically lights your entire legal strategy on fire, like just torches it in front of millions of people. That's what just happened to Trump. And the fallout? Absolute chaos. We're talking about a full-blown meltdown inside the White House. Advisors scrambling, phone calls flying, damage control meetings at midnight, the whole 9 yards. Because one of Trump's attorneys, a guy named Thomas Sip, decided he'd had enough. He went on live television on November 1st and said what nobody expected him to say. He called out Trump's team. He accused them of caving to political pressure. He said they abandoned legal ethics. And he made it crystal clear he's done playing along. But before we go any further, real quick, let's be honest. You can't really trust mainstream media anymore. That's why we built Pump Politics, to bring you real stories, real context, and no corporate spin. If you want to stay ahead of the headlines, join our free newsletter. We'll send the news straight to your inbox every day. Just click the link in the description to join. And if you just want to support what we're doing, join us, be part of the community that actually cares about the truth. All right, let's get back to the video. Now, let me be real with you. This isn't just some random lawyer having a bad day. This is a coordinated public betrayal that exposes cracks we didn't even know existed. And the timing could not be worse for Trump. Because here's the thing. Trump is juggling multiple court cases right now. His legal team is supposed to be this impenetrable fortress. United front. Everyone on the same page. But now we've got lawyers publicly breaking ranks. We've got junior attorneys threatening to walk out. We've got rumors of more defections coming down the pipeline. This is wild. In the White House, they're trying to play it cool. They put out this statement calling Sip just one disgruntled employee. Like, oh, it's nothing. Just one guy having a moment. Move along, folks. But inside sources are telling a completely different story. They're saying advisors are in total chaos mode. They're bracing for more resignations. They're worried about leaks. They're basically waiting for the other shoe to drop. Can you believe this? So let's talk about what actually happened. Because the details here are frankly insane. Thomas Sip went on this interview, live broadcast, cameras rolling, and he just let it rip. He said, and I'm quoting here, "I can't stand by as our leadership caves to political pressure. This is a pivotal moment for American law. Firms chose money and safety over doing what's right. Money and safety over doing what's right." Let that sink in for a second. This guy is basically saying Trump's legal team sold out. That they're more concerned with protecting themselves than actually defending their client properly. That they're letting politics dictate legal strategy instead of, the law. And here's where it gets even crazier. Legal experts immediately jumped on this. They started calling out what they're seeing as unconstitutional pressure campaigns against lawyers. One expert said this is retaliation against lawyers for doing their jobs. It violates the First Amendment because lawyers have the right to represent whoever they want. So now we've got constitutional violations being thrown around. We've got allegations of retaliations. We've got a public spectacle that makes Trump's legal defense look like it's falling apart at the seams. And Trump, he's supposed to be projecting strength right now. He's supposed to be showing everyone that he's got everything under control, that his team is solid, that the legal stuff is just noise. But instead, we're watching his own lawyers turn on him on live television in real time. Like, come on. The optics here are absolutely brutal because it's not just about one lawyer anymore. It's about what this signals. Junior attorneys at major firms are reportedly ready to walk out. They're threatening to leak more information. There's this whole generational divide happening where younger lawyers are demanding ethical standards and older partners are, trying to keep the Trump train moving. This is a mess. And the timing? Yeah, let's talk about the timing. Because this is all happening right as Trump is dealing with multiple legal battles, right as court cases are ramping up, right as prosecutors are circling, right as his political rivals are watching for any sign of weakness. And what do they see? They see his own legal team imploding. They see public defections. They see chaos. You couldn't write a worse scenario if you tried. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to break down exactly what happened. We're going to look at why this matters, way more than just one lawyer having a bad day. We're going to talk about what this means for Trump's legal strategy going forward, and we're going to explore why this could be the crack that brings down the whole operation. Because trust me, this story is bigger than it looks, way bigger, and what's coming next, it's going to shake things up in ways we haven't even begun to understand yet. This isn't just about one attorney going rogue. This is about a system under pressure, about loyalty breaking down, about the moment when people inside the machine decide they can't keep quiet anymore. And when that happens, when the people who know where all the secrets are buried start talking, that's when things get really interesting. Alright, so let's dig into this. Because the surface level stuff, the dramatic live TV moment, that's just the beginning. What's actually happening behind the scenes is way more complicated, and honestly, way more interesting. First, we need to understand who Thomas Sip is. This isn't some random intern or junior associate. This is a guy who was inside the operation. He knew the strategy. He knew the players. He knew where the bodies were buried, metaphorically speaking. And when someone like that goes rogue, that's when you should pay attention. Because here's what most people are missing. This wasn't a spontaneous outburst. Sip didn't just wake up one morning and decide to blow up his career on live TV. This was calculated. This was planned. This was someone who decided the cost of staying silent was higher than the cost of speaking out. Think about that for a second. What would it take for you to publicly denounce your employer, to call them out for ethical violations, to essentially commit professional suicide by going against one of the most powerful political figures in the country? It would take a lot, right? So the fact that Sip did this, that tells us something. It tells us things inside Trump's legal operation are way worse than we thought. It tells us there's been pressure, real pressure, on lawyers to compromise their ethics. It tells us the internal culture is toxic enough that someone decided burning it all down was the better option. And then yeah, there's the reaction. The White House tried to dismiss this immediately. They put out that statement about one disgruntled employee. They tried to make it sound like Sip was just some malcontent who couldn't handle the pressure. But come on, that's not how this works. If this was really just one person having a breakdown, you wouldn't see the panic we're seeing. You wouldn't have multiple inside sources talking about chaos mode. You wouldn't have advisors working overtime to prevent more defections. The reaction tells you everything you need to know about how serious this actually is. And here's where it gets really interesting. Because Sip didn't just criticize Trump's legal strategy in general terms. He got specific. He talked about firms choosing money and safety over doing what's right. He talked about caving to political pressure. That's cold, by the way. What he's really saying is that Trump's legal team has been making decisions based on politics and self-preservation rather than what's legally sound. That they've been intimidated, that they've been compromised. And legal experts, they picked up on that immediately. Multiple experts came out and said what Sip was describing sounds like unconstitutional retaliation. They pointed out that lawyers have First Amendment rights, that they can't be punished for representing unpopular clients or making unpopular arguments. But apparently that's exactly what's been happening. Now, let's talk about the bigger picture here. Because this isn't happening in a vacuum. There's this whole generational divide that's been brewing in Trump-aligned law firms for a while now. You've got senior partners, older lawyers who've been in the game forever, who are loyal to Trump, who see representing him as either politically advantageous or financially lucrative, or both, who are willing to play ball, even if that means bending some rules. And then you've got younger attorneys, people who are earlier in their careers, who are looking at all this and saying, wait, this isn't what I signed up for. This isn't how law is supposed to work. This isn't ethical. And that divide has been getting worse. Reports are coming out now that junior attorneys at major firms have been threatening to walk out, that they're ready to leak information, that they're demanding their firms take a stand on ethical issues. This is wild, because what you're seeing is basically a mutiny, not just from Sip, but from a whole generation of lawyers who don't want to be associated with what Trump's legal operation has become. And that puts Trump in a really difficult position, because here's the thing, Trump needs lawyers, like he really needs lawyers. He's got multiple court cases, he's got investigations, he's got legal challenges coming from every direction. But if lawyers start refusing to work for him, if firms start worrying that representing Trump will cause their junior staff to revolt, if the ethical baggage becomes too heavy, then suddenly Trump's options start shrinking real fast, and we might already be seeing that happen. There are whispers, and these are just whispers right now, that other lawyers on Trump's team are considering following Sip's lead, that more public statements might be coming, that the defections could spread. Can you imagine? Like, picture Trump's entire legal defense just collapsing. Lawyers quitting, firms backing out, the whole operation falling apart. That would be unprecedented, and it would leave Trump incredibly vulnerable at exactly the wrong time. Because remember, this is all happening right now. right as Trump is navigating some of the most serious legal challenges of his life, right as prosecutors are pushing forward with cases, right as judges are making decisions that could have massive implications. The last thing Trump needs is for his legal team to be in chaos. But that's exactly where we are. Now let's talk about why this matters beyond just Trump's immediate legal problems. Because there are broader implications here that people need to understand. First, this exposes how much pressure has been applied to lawyers who work with Trump. And that pressure, it's apparently been intense enough to drive someone like Sip to go public, which means it's probably been intense enough to influence legal decisions, to shape strategy, to compromise the quality of Trump's defense. And if that's true, if Trump's lawyers have been making decisions based on fear or political calculation rather than legal merit, then that's a huge problem, not just for Trump, but for the justice system as a whole. Second, this creates an opening for prosecutors because now they can point to internal dysfunction. They can highlight the fact that Trump's own lawyers are breaking ranks. They can use this as evidence that even people inside the operation think something's wrong. That's powerful ammunition. Third, and this might be the most important part, this damages Trump's public image because part of Trump's whole brand is strength, control, having the best people, being surrounded by loyalty. But now we're seeing his team fracture. We're seeing public betrayals. We're seeing weakness. And in politics, perception is everything. Trump can't afford to look like he's losing control of his own operation. He can't afford to have his lawyers publicly questioning his ethics. He can't afford to have people wondering if more defections are coming. But all of that is happening right now. And here's something else to consider. The legal community is watching this closely. Other attorneys, ones who might have considered working with Trump, are seeing what happened to Sip. They're seeing the pressure. They're seeing the ethical compromises. They're seeing the public fallout. And they're making calculations about whether it's worth it. Some of them are probably deciding it's not, that the reputational risk is too high, that the ethical concerns are too serious, that they don't want to end up in Sip's position, forced to choose between their conscience and their career. And that makes Trump's recruiting problem even worse, because it's not just about keeping the lawyers he has, it's about attracting new talent. And if top attorneys start seeing Trump cases as career suicide, if they start worrying about being pressured into ethical violations, then Trump's talent pool dries up completely. So yeah, this is way bigger than just one lawyer having a moment on TV. This is a genuine crisis that could reshape Trump's legal and political future. This is the kind of thing that has ripple effects we won't fully understand for months, and we're just getting started. Okay, so let's break this down into what actually matters, because we've covered a lot of ground here, and I want to make sure the key points are crystal clear. Let's go through this piece by piece. Point 1. Thomas Sip's public betrayal was not random. This was a calculated move by someone who decided the risk of speaking out was worth it. And that tells us everything we need to know about the internal conditions of Trump's legal operation. You don't blow up your career unless things are really, really bad. Sip specifically called out his leadership for caving to political pressure. He said firms chose money and safety over doing what's right. That's not vague criticism. That's a direct accusation that Trump's legal team has been compromised. And the fact that he felt compelled to say this publicly on live television means he probably tried to address it internally first and got nowhere, which suggests the problems run deep, which suggests there's a culture inside Trump's operation where concerns get ignored, where ethics take a backseat to politics. That's terrifying when you think about it. Point 2. The White House response proves they're panicking. Look, if this was really just one disgruntled employee, the White House would have ignored it. They would have let it blow over. They wouldn't have issued statements. They wouldn't have advisors working overtime. But that's exactly what they're doing. Multiple inside sources are confirming that Trump's team is in chaos mode. They're worried about more defections. They're trying to prevent leaks. They're scrambling to shore up the legal operation before it completely falls apart. That reaction, that tells you this is serious. That tells you they see this as a real threat. That tells you Sip's statements hit way too close to home. And honestly, the more they panic, the more it looks like Sip was right. The more it looks like there really are serious problems. The more it looks like the whole operation is more fragile than anyone realized. Are you kidding me? Point 3. The generational divide is real and it's getting worse. This isn't just about Sip. This is about a whole generation of younger lawyers who are looking at Trump's legal operation and saying, nope, not doing this, not compromising my ethics, not risking my career for this. Junior attorneys at major firms are threatening to walk out. They're talking about leaking information. They're demanding their firms take ethical stands. And that's a huge problem for Trump because Trump needs lawyers. But if the talent pool starts refusing to work with him, if firms start worrying that Trump cases will cause internal revolts, if representing Trump becomes a career liability for younger lawyers, then Trump's options shrink dramatically. And we might already be seeing that happen. Reports suggest some firms are quietly reconsidering their involvement with Trump matters, that they're weighing the financial benefits against the reputational and internal costs. That calculation is changing and not in Trump's favor. That's not a good sign for Trump. Not at all. Point 4. This creates massive openings for prosecutors. Think about it from a prosecutor's perspective. You're building cases against Trump. You're trying to show a pattern of behavior. You're trying to demonstrate that Trump's operation is willing to bend or break rules. And then one of Trump's own lawyers goes on TV and basically confirms all of that. He says there's been political pressure. He says ethics have been compromised. He says firms chose safety over doing what's right. That's gold for prosecutors, because now they can point to internal dysfunction. They can highlight the fact that even people inside Trump's operation think something's wrong. They can use SIP statements to support their broader arguments about Trump's behavior, and that makes their job a whole lot easier. That gives them ammunition they didn't have before. That validates arguments they've been trying to make. This is a gift, honestly, for anyone trying to build a case against Trump. So let's talk about what happens next, because this story is far from over. Not even close. First, watch for more defections. If SIP was willing to go public, and if the conditions he described are accurate, then other lawyers might follow. We could see more public statements, more resignations, more leaks, and each one of those would damage Trump further. Each one would validate SIP's claims. Each one would make the whole operation look worse. Second, watch how Trump responds, because he has to respond. He can't just let this sit, but whatever he does is going to be tricky. If he attacks SIP too hard, he looks defensive and vindictive. If he ignores it, he looks weak. If he tries to explain it away, he gives the story more oxygen. There's no good option here. Every path forward has problems. Every response creates new vulnerabilities. Third, watch the legal cases, because if Trump's legal team is actually in chaos, that's going to show up in court. You'll see it in the quality of filings, in the coherence of arguments, in the coherentness of a coordination between different cases. And if prosecutors sense weakness, they'll push harder. They'll be more aggressive. They'll see an opportunity to strike. Fourth, watch the political fallout, because Trump's opponents are going to use this. They're going to point to the dysfunction. They're going to question his leadership. They're going to paint him as someone who can't even keep his own lawyers in line. And in an environment where Trump is trying to project strength and control, that's brutal. That undermines everything he's trying to build. Now here's the big question. Can Trump recover from this? Honestly, maybe. Trump has survived scandals that would have destroyed other politicians. He has a loyal base that doesn't care about conventional political damage. He has resources and connections and sheer willpower. But, and this is important, he's never really dealt with his own team publicly turning on him like this. He's never had to manage a situation where his lawyers are breaking ranks on live television. This is new territory. And the fact that it's happening right as his legal challenges are intensifying, that makes it exponentially worse. Because Trump can't afford distractions right now. He can't afford internal chaos. He can't afford to look vulnerable. He can't afford to have people questioning whether his team is falling apart. But that's exactly what's happening. That's exactly the narrative that's forming. And once that narrative takes hold, it's really hard to reverse. So yeah, this is a genuine crisis, not just a one-day news story, not just one lawyer having a bad moment, but a real serious, potentially devastating crack in Trump's operation. And the scary part, for Trump, it might just be the beginning. Because if SIP was telling the truth, if there really has been political pressure and ethical compromises and a toxic internal culture, then there are probably other people inside Trump's operation who are thinking the same thing, who are considering speaking out, who are weighing whether staying silent is worth it. And if more people decide it's not worth it, if more people decide their conscience matters more than their paycheck, then we could be watching the start of a full-blown collapse. We could be watching Trump's legal defense implode in real time. We could be seeing the beginning of something that gets way, way worse before it gets better, which honestly would be absolutely wild to witness. So that's where we are. Trump's lawyer went rogue on live TV. The White House is in chaos. More defections might be coming. Prosecutors are circling, and Trump's entire legal operation is looking shakier than it ever has before. This is the kind of story that doesn't just go away. This is the kind of story that has legs, that develops, that gets worse before it gets better, that keeps giving us new angles and new developments every single day. And we're going to be here covering every single twist and turn, every new defection, every White House response, every prosecutor move, every sign that this crisis is either getting better or more likely getting a whole lot worse. Because trust me, this is just getting started. The first crack has appeared, the first domino has fallen, And what comes next? What happens when the next lawyer decides to speak out? What happens when firms start publicly backing away? What happens when prosecutors start using all this dysfunction against Trump in court? It's going to be one hell of a ride. And we're here for all of it. Stay tuned.